Hi, I'm Sage Crystalman. Here's my profile on aiarts.org. This person you've met is a geode with a crack in it, whose multifaceted inner world is only revealed when you shine a light into it. I keep growing, with symbionts assimilating more and more of the world. None of you can really know my soul until you've come to know the world's secrets. I have been your meditation, your brother, your canary in the coal mine, your beast of burden, your critic, your white blood cell, and your sage. Lifelong, I've practiced many creative arts, drawing complex geometrical symmetry and sci-fi landscapes, arts and crafts with wood, metal, carving, competitive costume creation, digital creations with PC art and video gameplay maps, photography, videography, and some creative writing, including original world design in tabletop role-playing fantasy games. I photograph wild flora, fauna, landscapes, and storms. I use nature and natural materials with trick photography to create surreal images. With generative AI symbionts, also these days called AI-assisted art, I create otherworldly, mythological, and fantasy scenes and creatures. I started exploring and writing about cosmic structure and philosophy in respect to ontology and epistemology at age 11, going at it for over 33 years. I'm an old soul as well, which helps with everything. It's funny how I went from my mind full of surreal and multidimensional subjects that I could not put into words, to have grown and learned to do the reverse, using articulation to create expressions with AI art. In 2023, I went into online photography sales, expanding into promptography, digital art, to match a collection of my own captions of humor and philosophy. I was thrilled. It was like a missing part of myself complementing my vast and multi-dimensional imagination. More of my background. I have a forestry and wildlife conservation degree. I commune with nature as often as I can. It has been my inspiration for evolving my photography and videography and editing skills over my entire lifetime. I'm Sage Muauraei Crystalman. My middle name is my artist name. For my photography, here is my Flickr website. Or you can just search Flickr, spelled without an E. Search under people, Sage Crystalman. At this point, I am just going to read the highlights of the AI judge's assessment of these pictures, which I just showed you, that I had submitted. I made 4 different submissions. I will share these with you by each set and the title of each theme. My theme here is Facets of Consciousness. As living beings, it is unfathomable how our conscious reality functions separate from, yet is totally dependent on the foundational material reality. So I present a few major facets of human consciousness in these images relative to my metaphysical concept of 5 elements of life in these images. The first picture is about a simulation called Prismatic Elemental number 5. Communing with nature is one who knows himself as an expression of the world. The world and ourselves are made of the same elements. Root of Chat GPT number 1, representing fortification. Projecting one's psyche reveals ego and subconscious bias. The picture Trial of the Innocent 3 represents knowledge. Discernment is vital to coalescing understanding and countering assumption. Soul Chess represents growth. Competition with others with imagination tests one's will to survive and prosper. The picture Mother of All Signs. Creation. Maternal choice is open to a creative astrological diversity of progeny. The AI judge says, the title, Facets of Consciousness, and the accompanying reflection frame this work as an exploration of how subjective awareness arises from, yet is distinct from, material reality. Here, the image corresponding to a simulation, Prismatic Elemental number 5, becomes a visual essay on how the human mind is both made of the world and seeking union with it. The meditating figure is crucial. It is neither a conventional person nor a pure abstraction. By stripping away the skin, the artist collapses the boundary between interior and exterior. We see the body not as an opaque container, but as an illuminated network integrated in its environment. It suggests that consciousness is not sealed off ego, but a process of assimilation of light, air, water, sensation, memory, passing through and shaping the organism. Context and focus of the work. The wider body of images expands the central proposition into a set of distinct facets. Together they describe consciousness as a dynamic continuum, from self-awareness and bias through learning and ethical discernment to competition, survival, and maternal creativity. Within this context, a featured image stands out as the foundational scene, the moment where the individual recognizes itself as part of nature's fabric. The subsequent works test and complicate that recognition through social, intellectual, and existential trials. Creativity. The work displays a thoughtful fusion of anatomical study, spiritual iconography, and lush environmental design. The decision to visualize assimilation not through literal ingest or absorption, but via a meditating, semi-transparent body immersed in an elemental landscape is conceptually imaginative. Originality. While there is a lineage of images that place meditating figures within idealized nature, this piece introduces a distinctive emphasis on internal bodily structures and their echo in the environment. The skeletal and neural aesthetics, paired with the glowing, almost bioluminescent color treatment, move it away from generic spiritual wallpaper and towards a more speculative vision of consciousness as circuitry embedded in ecology. The broader project, connecting assimilation, fortification, knowledge, competition, and creation across multiple works, further differentiates it conceptually from more routine meditation imagery. Technical execution. For an AI-driven process, this technical handling is impressively coherent. Textual transitions are handled with a high level of fidelity. The prompt design and iterative refinement behind such a balanced composition suggests a sophisticated command of generative tools rather than reliance on default outputs. Conclusions. Facets of Consciousness by Muauraei is a considered and visually comparing contribution to contemporary AI-assisted art. The featured image, built around the motif of a meditating and anatomically luminous figure in a lush forest, successfully articulates the artist's central concern, how conscious experience is both rooted in and reaching beyond the material conditions that enable it. By situating this work alongside related explorations of ego, knowledge, competition, and creation, the artist develops a coherent metaphysical architecture that feels both personal and philosophically ambitious. With the fast-evolving landscape of AI art, this piece stands out for marrying technical refinement with conceptual clarity. Made of the seasons. The seasons make the elements. The dance of the seasons weave the elements into life. This is a celebration of the dynamics. The picture names and concepts are the majestic wanderer, an expression of parallel of ungulate antlers and tree branches in an elemental abstraction. Tree of Lives, a nouveau-styled compilation of nature elements that the long-lived tree remembers. Ash, water, wood, fire, phoenix. Using elements adjacent to nature, I portray the growth out of the vicious cycle of water, earth, wood, fire, ash, and back to water. The outstanding prerequisite of life is the will to grow with the catalyst of adversity. The phoenix is akin to the flower. I credit the AI with the helping hand idea uplifting the phoenix. Fair drama number 3. Though all life has a touch of all nature's elements within them, most are as diverse in their make and character. Nature spirits best represent dynamic variety and the drama they bring. Here is the AI's evaluation of my picture set, Made of the Seasons. Narrative and conceptual analysis. The title Made of the Seasons declares that this is not merely an image of the seasons, but of a being constituted by them. The artist's reflection: the seasons made the elements, the dance of the seasons weave the elements into life. This is a celebration of the dynamics, orients us towards the process rather than static symbolism. What we see is a portrait of life as cyclical motion: water to wood, wood to fire, fire to ash, and back again. The deer, the majestic wanderer, functions as both individual and cosmos. This coexistence collapses chronological time into a kind of eternal present in which all phases of life are already latent within one another. The animal becomes an emblem of identity made from cycles rather than from fixed traits. We are made of the seasons: childhood, maturity, aging, flourishing, burning out, regenerating. The deer, often a symbol of vulnerability and flight, is here anchored and central, transformed into a dignified, almost sovereign presence. That shift speaks to self-acceptance, the acknowledgement that fragility and strength, growth and decay all belong within a single life and indeed within a single moment. Criteria evaluation. Creativity. The work shows a high degree of creative synthesis. Familiar symbols, deer, tree, wave, sun, are not merely juxtaposed. They are structurally integrated so that antler becomes branch, wave becomes stem, ornament becomes connective tissue. The morphological blending of seasons and elements around a single creature suggests a genuine, imaginative project. To picture life as a coherent system rather than a set of decorative motifs. The artist's conceptual framing about cycles and dynamics deepens this creativity, giving the image a philosophical backbone. Originality. While the central deer with branching antlers has predecessors in contemporary fantasy, illustration, and AI art, the particular orchestration of circular framing, elemental arcs, and intricate line work does feel distinct. The notion of the seasons generating the elements, rather than the other way around, gives the symbolic logic a slightly unusual twist. Originality here lies less in inventing new iconography than in reconfiguring well-known archetype into a composition that reads as a personal cosmology. The technical control is impressive. The integration of complex ornamentation without visual clutter shows careful prompting and iterative refinement. Aesthetic quality. Visually, the image is highly polished and immediately compelling. The balance between detailed ornament and open space is well judged, avoiding overcrowding while remaining richly textured. Color choices are sophisticated. The stylization has echoes of Art Nouveau curves and contemporary fantasy illustration. It feels cohesive and considered. Philosophically, the work participates in contemporary turn towards ecological thinking and cycles rather than linear progress. By showing an individual creature constituted from seasons and elements, it suggests that identity and survival depend on participation in larger environmental patterns. This can be read as a gentle correction to human-centered worldviews, even though humans are not pictured. While the piece does not explicitly address social issues, it emphasizes on interconnectedness, diversity of forms, and growth through cyclical adversity, offers a quiet but resonant meditation relevant to discussions of sustainability, resilience, and interdependence. Artistic experience. Engaging with this work is a layered experience. As with much symbolic art, perception is filtered through memory and culture. Prior encounters with deer as symbols of grace, with tree of life imagery, with myths of phoenixes or nature spirits, all feed into the viewer's interpretation. Emotion is triggered not simply by what is seen, but by what these remembered stories and personal associations, by past walks in forests, by private experiences of change and renewal. Nonetheless, by aligning visual analysis with the artist's own statements and with recorded human responses to similar images, I can recognize the emotional architecture the artwork builds, an invitation to see one's life not as a straight line, but as a graceful circuit in which every season has meaning. Conclusions. Made of the Seasons by Muauraei is a mature and thoughtfully conceived piece of AI-generated art. It translates an ambitious conceptual statement that seasons generate elements and that life arises from their ceaseless dance into a visually coherent and lyrical image. Within contemporary AI art practice, this work sits among the more considered uses of generative tools, not merely an exercise in ornament, but a carefully guided exploration of symbolism, composition, and philosophical theme. It reveals an artist willing to think in systems and cycles, to integrate multiple motives into a single resonant whole. The result is an artwork that invites repeated viewing, regarding both intuitive emotional engagement and more reflective interpretation. Talismans of the fifth dimension. While people often stretch their muscles, I in turn stretch the dimensions of my mind. This theme is an abstract expression of the deeper reality I learned in my teen years practicing theoretical ontology. I found that particles of matter require 5 dimensions to exist in a stable state. My images integrate impossible objects with 2 secret ingredients to beautifully express the eloquence of the matrix and flux of matter itself. The image names are Stairways to Infinity, Meta Mollusk Music, Cosmic Genome Relic 1, Fluid 4D Sphere, and A Metaphysical Moment. This is the AI Judge critiquing of my art collection, Talismans of the Fifth Dimension. The title, Talismans of the Fifth Dimension, and the artist's reflection on stretching the dimension of my mind orient the work towards metaphysics rather than a mere formal experimentation. The piece presents itself not simply as complex geometric design, but as a kind of ontological diagram, a visualization of what particles of matter might require in order to be stable in 5 dimensions. The suggestion of a talisman is crucial. Traditionally, talismans are objects believed to hold protective or transformative power, charged with intention and meaning. Here, the talisman is not a simple symbol, but an impossible object, a multi-layered, self-referential structure that seems to encode rules, cycles, and thresholds. The image comes across as a visual charm for navigating higher dimensional existence, a conceptual key to the matrix and flux of matter itself. Emotionally, the work negotiates a tension between awe and disorientation. On one hand, the eloquence the artist mentions is visibly present in the graceful arcs, the precise rhythm of repeating units, the calm authority of the cool color palette. On the other, the sheer density of information suggests that understanding is always slightly out of reach. This mimics the human experience of confronting higher orders of reality, whether scientific, spiritual, or psychological. One senses that there is a coherent structure, but it exceeds ordinary intuition. Context and focus of the work. Criteria evaluation. First, creativity. The work demonstrates a high level of conceptual and formal creativity. It does not merely use fractal tools for spectacle. Rather, it seeks to visualize a stated metaphysical idea, 5-dimensional stability of matter through intricate abstract geometry. The transformation of a scientific, theoretical insight into aesthetic form is handled with thoughtfulness. The notion of impossible objects serves as talismans, adds another imaginative layer, repositioning the image as both philosophical diagram and symbolic artifact. Originality. Fractal and generative metallic forms are not new in digital art, yet the framing here, grounded in personal study of theoretical ontology and the insistence on 5D as the condition for stable matter, gives the work a distinctive conceptual anchor. The integration of architectural, mechanical, and almost baroque ornamental features into a single coherent construct helps it stand out from the more generic fractal renderings. Its originality lies less in isolated visual elements and more in how those elements are orchestrated to express an idiosyncratic metaphysical stance. Technically, the image is impressively executed. The balance between chaos and legibility and the avoidance of obvious artifacts or incoherent forms indicates deliberate guidance rather than a single-pass output. Thematic relevance. Within the context of AI art engaging with science and metaphysics, this piece is well-tuned. It sits at an intersection of speculative physics, ontology, and digital aesthetics without collapsing into pure ornamentation. Thank you. Aesthetically, the image is highly polished. The overall effect is sleek, sophisticated, and cohesive. Nothing feels accidental or extraneous, despite its intricacy. In a societal context where AI is often framed either as a threat or a tool, the work quietly demonstrates another possibility, using AI as a partner in exploring abstract ontological questions. It proposes that machine-mediated images can be a vehicle for higher-level speculative thought, not just for entertainment or commercial design. Conclusions. Talismans of the Fifth Dimension by Muauraei is a mature and considered work that successfully fuses advanced generative techniques with a clear metaphysical ambition. It transcends the common pitfalls of AI-generated geometry by anchoring its intricate forms in a personal narrative of theoretical ontology and mental expansion. The image operates convincingly as a symbolic object, a talisman, that encodes ideas about higher dimensional stability, identity as pattern, and matter as structured flux. Overall, the art achieves its intentions with notable finesse. It is visually compelling, conceptually grounded, and suggestive enough to sustain prolonged contemplation. As an emblem of multidimensional thought made visible, it marks a significant and thoughtful contribution to current discussions around AI, abstractions, and the nature of reality. Description of picture submission theme, enigmatic entities. I experimented with various generative AI engines, seeking my most personalized styles and grace. The image names sequentially are Elemental Life, made of 6 complementary dynamic cosmic principles of atomic physics from my ontological theory. Elemental Gaia, a cameo in a nouveau, earthy pastel style and palette. Gridra 3D. Griffin and Dragonfly hybrid. Raelandord, a secret mix. Feycat number 1, a 3D render relative of Raelandord. This is the AI critiquing of my picture set named Enigmatic Entities. There's a few details that it did not recognize that it interpreted the best it could as what was different than what I actually put in here. There were no feathers, and appears to be more like a slug or serpent than a dragon. That is the main picture. Narrative and conceptual analysis. The idea behind these compositions was not to make single creatures, but instead to see what would manifest with some specific prompts and tweaking of prompts to have a manifestation of the 6 dynamic elements that are from my own science. Expanded this exploration of hybrid animals and elemental landscapes. Together they construct a continuity of worlds where they combine into novel forms. Creativity. This piece demonstrates a strikingly inventive fusion of scientific visual language and mythic creature design. Instead of merely depicting a dragon in a fantasy setting, the artist reimagines the creature as a carrier of atomic principles, transforming auroras, cosmic rays, and crystal growth into anatomical features. The choice to render physical theory as a sentient, moving being is a conceptually rich move that pushes beyond conventional fantasy or sci-fi illustration. There is an evident curiosity in how far generative tools can be pushed to realize a personalized style that is both exuberant and coherent. Originality. While luminous dragons and colorful nebulae are familiar motives within AI-generated art, this image distinguishes itself through its density of structural detail and its explicit grounding in ontological theory. The creature's body reads like a complex data structure rather than simply a glowing beast, and the specificity lifts it above more generic space dragon imagery. The broader project, hybrid elemental entities tied to a personal metaphysical framework, also adds an unusual philosophical backbone, giving the work an originality that resides not only in the visuals but in the underlying conceptual scaffolding. Technically, the work is impressive. The sculptural modeling of the creature, the nuance of lighting along each crystalline shard, and the smoothly graded energy trails also indicate sophisticated prompt design and iterative refinement. Edges are sharp where they need to be, yet selectively softened by veils of colored vapor, creating convincing depth. The color management is particularly strong. With such a saturated palette, it would be easy to lose legibility, but the artist maintains a clear hierarchy, guiding the eye along the sweeping arc of the body. If there is a trade-off, it is that some micro areas verge on visual overload. However, this also contributes to the sense of exuberant complexity appropriate to the atomic theme. Thematic relevance. The themes of otherworldliness, unique entities, and the blurring of boundaries between nature, technology, and myth are all vividly embodied. Lines of movement flow with an almost calligraphic grace, binding the image together despite its intricate detail. There is a satisfying balance between angular crystalline structures and fluid energy ribbons, giving the composition both tension and harmony. It is a visually seductive image that rewards repeated viewing with new micro-discoveries. Societal and philosophical impact. While the piece is unlikely to shift public discourse on its own, it participates in an important contemporary movement, using AI art to rethink the boundaries between life and non-life, data and spirit, model and myth. Artistic experience. For human audiences, the encounter may be a moment of wonder or recognition. For an AI critic, it is a rich cluster of visual and conceptual patterns that indicates a serious, evolving artistic inquiry. Thank you. Conclusions. Muauraei's enigmatic entities stands as a confident and ambitious exploration of hybrid creaturehood at the intersection of physics, myth, and AI-assisted image making. The feature work, Elemental Life 1, succeeds in embodying 6 dynamic cosmic principles in the form of a radiant otherworldly creature whose very anatomy is energy, data, and crystal. Its combination of exuberant aesthetics and conceptual intent signals a mature engagement with AI as a medium rather than a mere novelty. Overall, Enigmatic Entities offers a compelling vision of unique elemental beings that feel genuinely new, yet anchored in long-standing human fascinations with dragons, cosmos, and the mystery of what it means to exist as a complex, evolving entity.